Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Let me adjust the... Okay. All right, I hope everybody had a good week. I start the Torah reading 15 minutes early in a future world where we actually have people listening in. It'll be nice to say greetings, maybe a little bit of chatting before we actually start. And today, I'm going to be doing Va-yeshev, which is Genesis 37:1, verse 1 to Genesis 40:23. And this is one of my favorite stories in the Bible. It's a story of Joseph. Not Joseph's adopted father. When you say Joseph, a lot of people automatically assume Yeshua's adopted father. But there's another Joseph. It's basically the last story in the book of Genesis. And that's Joseph and his coat of many colors that was given to him by Jacob. And anyways, I'm not going to be doing any spoilers per se, but it's one of the most inspiring stories for me anyways in the Bible, because it's a very good rags to riches story where Joseph is kind of like not very well liked by his brothers of that were all part of Jacob's children, and they basically banish him, and then his life gets turned around. So a lot of times when I'm challenged in my life, I look to that story for inspiration, because Joseph is basically sold off as a slave, and in the end, he becomes second only to the ruler of Egypt. So, a beautiful story. And when I feel weak and I'm basically bored with the things of life, I look to that story and to look up to hopefully a new future. A future where well, not a future in Egypt, but a future in the land. When things are better, because right now the earth is not a very nice place to be. There's wars all over the place, starting and stopping all the time. People are basically being slaughtered left, right, and center. Theft is rampant. Everything is rampant. They'll have you believe, the politicians will anyways, that they're going to be tough on crime and all that stuff. But in the end, nothing really changes. Crime is still basically gets worse and worse every year, with more and more fraud, more and more different kinds of criminal activity going from bad to worse. So, come Yeshua, come. Clean up this mess so that we can actually do the Torah in the land. and not be persecuted for it. (11:49), 10:49. I'll be waiting for till 11 o'clock to start. I hope everybody had a good week. I had a pretty good week. I'm actually doing a lot of renovations and repairs to my house. And finally this week, I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. One of the major jobs is done. And even managed to set up our little hot tub in the back to be able to take a nice warm bath and relax the muscles after I'm hurting. I'm a hurting unit at the end of the day, because doing construction in your late 50s is pretty tough. I used to be able to work from basically sunset to sundown, but not anymore. Now by 4 or 5 o'clock, that's it for me. I get sore backs, sore everything, and gotta stop, take a rest. So sucks to get old, but hey, still alive, still moving, and I thank you every day for that. Thank you, Father. You truly are Jehovah Jireh, the God who gives. And again, we have absolutely nobody. So I'm literally talking to myself.
We'll catch it on the replay.
Oh, well, you know what? It's all good. I'm doing this not for fame, not for fortune. I'm doing this for the sole reason that one day I'll be dead. And if I've had any influence in the world, people will hopefully see these videos of me reading the Torah and teaching, and many more will come to the Torah and to do Yeshua's commands. As my legacy. And that's really the only reason I do it. I'm not asking for donations. I'm not asking for praise. I'm not asking for anything. One day, hopefully, I will be an example when the world turns from light to dark, and maybe I'll be a little bit of light in a dark world someday. So who knows? And that's really the only reason I do what I do. It took me a long, long time to come to the Torah. I read and read Yeshua's teachings time and time again, and there's some things I just couldn't understand until I went to the first 5 books of the Bible. And then things started making a whole lot more sense. Because Yeshua doesn't teach anything new. He teaches the law and the prophets. And the law is basically the law of Moses, which is detailed from Genesis to Deuteronomy. And the prophets, which is part of you could say it's a commentary per se on how Israel should return to the law and how Israel should hold on and teach the commandments that the Father gave us all the way back when Moses was on the mount. So that's it. We don't add to the law. We don't remove from the law. We teach the law and the law alone. And that, to me, is really the only reason, the only religious instruction we should be either receiving or giving. Because as many know, the first command is very important, to love thy God with all thy heart and all thy strength. The second command, to love thy neighbor as thyself, is also super important. Because honestly, when it comes to the kingdom of heaven, there really is no other way to have an everlasting kingdom than to have a kingdom that respects all its people. You can't have one who is above the law, so to speak, and all the others part of the law. It doesn't work. The kingdom will destroy itself because the one above the law will disturb, so to speak, all the rest that are law-abiding citizens. So, and the third most important command is Deuteronomy 12:32. Thou shalt not add or remove to thy instructions. So that means to me that the Torah is a sealed canon and no one can add or remove from it. And that's exactly what Yeshua teaches us, that he shall not add or remove one word of the law. And anyone who teaches you the opposite, who teaches you that the Sabbath day is different, that the Sabbath day has been changed, that don't believe him. Go to the first 5 books and see exactly what God ordered his people to do in the land of Israel. We're not to add or remove anything, especially the feast days and any other things. All right, so 10:57, 3 minutes till we start. I hope my little monologue wasn't too boring. Just basically my insight on why I do what I do. And I do it because I love my father and I love my teacher, and I do just what they say and just what they command. God gave us the law, and Yeshua, well, he teaches us more about the failings of Israel and how we can overcome and do the prescribed things in the law without adding traditions or removing anything. So I know that's a hard thing to understand by many people. Many people have their own preconceived notions about God and what he is and what he does and what he commands us. And I know this probably more than many because I used to be Catholic. A lot of things didn't make sense to me in the Catholic canon and stuff like that. And it's only until, again, when I started reading the first 5 books of my Bible that I realized that some of the things I was taught was completely different than one of the things that God asks. So, thing is more important Who's more important? What God says or what a man says? So I choose the latter. I choose what God says instead of what man thinks God says, which can be totally different. All right, 10:59. I'm going to start slowly. Today's Torah reading is Va-yeshev, and it's a story of Joseph in the land of Canaan when he's living with Jacob. And the prophet is going to be Amos 2:6 to 2 to 3, chapter 3, verse 8. And it's 11 o'clock. Let's start. Va-yeshev. Now Jacob was settled in the land where his father had sojourned, the land of Canaan. This, then, is the line of Jacob. At 17 years of age, Joseph tended the flocks with his brothers as a helper to the sons of his father's wives, Bilhah and Zilpah. And Joseph brought bad reports of them to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph best of his sons, for he was the child of his old age. And he made him an ornamented tunic. Some Bible verses might say coat of many colors. And when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of his brothers, they hated him so they could not speak a friendly word to him. Once Joseph had a dream, which he told his brothers, and they hated him even more. He said to them, "Hear this dream which I have dreamed. There were binding sheaves in the fields, when suddenly my sheaf stood up and remained upright. Then your sheaves gathered around and bowed low to my sheaf." His brothers answered, "Do you mean to reign over us? Do you mean to rule over us?" And they hated even more for his talk about his dreams. He dreamed another dream and told his brothers, saying, "Look, I have had another dream, and this time the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me." And when he told it to his father and brothers, his father berated him. "What?" he said to him. "Is this dream that you have dreamed? Are we to come, I and your mother and your brothers, and bow low to you to the ground?" So his brothers were wroth at him, and his father kept the matter in mind. One night, when his brothers had gone to pasture their father's flock at Shechem, Israel said to Joseph, "Your brothers are pasturing at Shechem. Come, I will send you to them." He answered, "I am ready." And he said to him, "Go and see how your brothers are and how the flocks are faring, and bring me back word." So he sent him from the valley of Hebron. When he reached Shechem, a man came upon him wandering in the fields. The man asked him, "What are you looking for?" He answered, "I am looking for my brothers. Could you tell me where they are pasturing?" The man said, "They have gone from here, for I heard them say, 'Let us go to Dothan.'" So Joseph followed his brothers and found them at Dothan. They saw him from afar, and as before he came close to them, they conspired to kill him. They said to one another, "Here comes that dreamer. Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits, and we can say, 'A savage beast devoured him.' We shall see what comes of his dreams." But when Reuben heard it, he tried to save him from them. He said, "Let us not take his life." And Reuben went on, "Shed no blood. Cast him into the pit out in the wilderness, but do not touch him yourselves," intending to save them and restore him to his father, to save him from them and then restore him to his father. When Joseph came up to his brothers, they stripped Joseph of his tunic, the ornamented tunic that he was wearing, and took him and cast him into the pit. The pit was empty. There was no water in it. Then they sat down to a meal. Looking up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. their camels bearing gum, balm, and ladanum to be taken to Egypt. Then Judah said to his brothers, "What do we gain by killing our brother and covering up his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, but let us not do away with him ourselves. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh." His brothers agreed. When Midianite traders passed by, they pulled Joseph out of the pit. They sold Joseph for 20 pieces of silver to the Ishmaelites, who brought Joseph to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the pit and saw that Joseph was not in the pit, he rent his clothes. Returning to his brothers, he said, "The boy is gone. Now what am I to do?" Then they took Joseph's tunic, slaughtered a kid, and dipped the tunic in the blood. They had the ornamented tunic taken to their father, and they said, "We found this. Please examine it. It is your son's tunic or not?" He recognized it and said, "My son's tunic. A savage beast devoured him. Joseph was torn by a beast." Jacob rent his clothes, put sackcloth on his loins, and observed mourning for his son many days. All his sons and daughters sought to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted, saying, "No, I will go down mourning to my son in Sheol." Thus his father bewailed him. The Midianites, meanwhile, sold him in Egypt to Potiphar, a courtier of Pharaoh and his chief steward. Chapter 38. About that time, Judah left his brothers and camped near a certain Adulamite, whose name was Hira. There Judah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua, and he married her and cohabited with her. She conceived and bore a son, and named him She conceived again and bore a son, and named him Onan. Once again she bore a son, and she named him Shelah. He was at Cherzib when she bore him. Judah got his wife for his firstborn. Her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was displeasing to the Lord, and the Lord took his life. Then Judah said to Onan, "Join with your brother's wife, and do your duty by her as a brother-in-law, and provide offspring for your brother." But Onan, knowing that the seed would not count as his, let go to waste whenever he joined his brother's wife, so that as to not provide an offspring to his father. What he did was displeasing to the Lord, and he took his life also. Then Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, "Stay as a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up," for he thought he too might die like his brothers. So Tamar went to live in her father's house. A long time afterward, Shua's daughter, the wife of Judah, died. When his period of mourning was over, Judah went up to Timnah to his sheep shearers, together with his friend Hira the Adulamite. And Tamar was told, "Your father-in-law is coming up to Timnash for sheep shearing." So she took off her widow's garb, covered her face with a veil, and wrapping herself up, sat down at the entrance to Anaim, which is the road to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah was grown up, yet she had not been given to him as a wife. When Judah saw her, he took her for a harlot, for she had covered her face. So he turned aside to her by the road and said, "Here, let me sleep with you," for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. "What," she asked, "will you pay for sleeping with me?" He replied, "I will send a kid from my flock." But she said, "You must leave a pledge until you have sent it." And he said, "What pledge shall I give you?" She replied, "Your seal and your cord and the staff which you carry." So she gave them to her and slept with her. So he gave them to her and slept with her, and she conceived by him. Then she went on her way. She took off her veil and again put on her widow's garb. Judah sent the kid by his friend, the Adulamite, to redeem the pledge from the woman, but he could not find her. He inquired of the people of that town, "Where is the cult prostitute, the one at Anan by the road?" But they said, "There has been no prostitute here." So he returned to Judah and said, "I could not find her. Moreover, the townspeople said, 'There has been no prostitute here.'" Judah said, "Let her keep them, lest we become a laughingstock. Did I send her this kid, but you did not find her?" About 3 months later, Judah was told, "Your daughter-in-law Tamar has played the harlot. In fact, she is with child by harlotry." "Bring her out," said Judah, "and let her be burned." As she was being brought out, she sent this message to her father-in-law: "I am with child by the man whom these belong." And she added, "Examine these. Whose seal and cord and staff are these?" Judah recognized them and said, "She is more in the right than I, inasmuch as I did not give her to my son Shelah, and he was not intimate with her again." When the time came for her to give birth, there were twins in her womb. While she was in labor, one of them put out his hands, and the midwife tied a crimson on that hand to signify this one came out first. But just then he drew back his hand, and out came his brother. And she said, "What a breach you have made for yourself." So he was named Perez. Afterward, his brother came out, to whose hand was the crimson thread. He was named Zerah. Chapter 39. When Joseph was taken down to Egypt, a certain Egyptian, Potiphar, a courier of Pharaoh and his chief steward, brought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he was successful. He was a successful man, and he stayed in the house of his Egyptian master. And when his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord lent success to everything he undertook, he took a liking to Joseph. He made him his personal attendant and put him in charge of his household, placing in his hands all he owned. And from the time that the Egyptian put him in charge of his household and all that he had owned, the Lord blessed his house for Joseph's sake, so that the blessing of the Lord was upon everything that he owned in the house and outside. He left all that he had in Joseph's hands, and with him there, he paid attention to nothing save the food that he ate. Now Joseph was well built and handsome. After a time, his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph and said, "Lie with me." But he refused. He said to his master's wife, "Look, with me here, my master gives no thought to anything that is in his house, and all that he owns he has placed in my hands. He was no more authority in this house than I, and has withheld nothing from me except yourself, since you are his wife. How then could I do this most wicked thing and sin before God?" Much as she coaxed Joseph day after day, he did not yield to her request to lie with her, to be with her. One such day, he came into the house to do his work. None of the household being there inside, she caught hold of him by his garment and said, "Lie with me." But he left his garment in her hand and got away and fled outside. When she saw that he had left it in her hand and fled outside, she called out to her servant and said to them, "Look, he had to bring us a Hebrew to dally with us. This one came to lie with me, but I screamed loud. And when he heard me screaming at the top of my voice, he left his garment with me and got away and fled outside." She kept his garment beside her until his master came home. Then she told him the same story, saying, "The Hebrew slave whom you brought into our home came to me to dally with me. But when I screamed at the top of my voice, he left it with me and fled outside." When his master heard the story that his wife told him, namely, "Thus so and your slave did to me," he was furious. So Joseph's master had put him in prison where the king's prisoners were confined. But even while he was there in prison, the Lord was with Joseph. He extended kindness to him and disposed the chief jailer favorably towards him. The chief jailer put in Joseph's charge all the prisoners who were in that prison, and he was the one to carry out everything that was done there. The chief jailer did not supervise anything that was in Joseph's charge because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made successful. Chapter 40. Sometime later, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt gave offense to their lord, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two courtiers and the chief cupbearer and the chief baker and put them in custody.